There's something you should know. A photograph will always fall apart if you look at it too often. So will a family. So will a story. The country's a beautiful place, that's what my brother said. He'd visit me every year on August 9th. Why August 9th, I'd ask. Why not, he'd say. I didn't like my brother. He talked too much, and it was always about his club. Well, actually, it was my mother's club. He'd stay for exactly 3 days and leave behind him the stink of booze and sweat and family duty performed for another year. I was glad when he left. The country's a lot like a funeral home. You get used to the quiet. My parents broke up the day I was born. My father said not to take it personally. They flipped a coin. Heads, I would go with my mother to the city. Tails, my brother would. They said my mother never cried about anything, but that she cried when she left me. I never saw or heard from her again. I have never liked the country. Death is everywhere. That's my father. He said his main job as a farmer was to kill things. The crops kept growing, he had to mow them down. The animals kept giving birth, he had to exterminate them. It was nothing personal, he said. So I didn't take it personally when he took a mouthful of rat poison. At his funeral, I met my brother for the first time. He said my mother had died several years earlier. Then a letter came saying my brother was dead. He'd died of a ruptured gallbladder. That was the end of my family. Or so I thought. Until I found out I'd inherited the club. The city's a beautiful place. I especially like how they keep the trees and grass to a minimum. The club is beautiful too. Though I just found out it's actually a brothel. That's Josh, he's the bartender. He told me all about the club. After my mother left the farm, the only work she could get was as a prostitute. Josh said she liked it better than being married to my father. She got paid for her work and had sex with men she didn't hate. She saved her money for 9 years, raising my brother at the same time. She opened the club August 9th, 1970. I wish I could have been there to help her celebrate. Josh said Mother never seemed very happy after that. She started locking herself into the office and reading cheap Western novels. She left the running of the place to my brother. He was managing things pretty much by himself by the age of 15. The club is filled with interesting people, not the least of which is Josh. He used to work for the mafia. One night, he broke down and told me he'd stolen some money from the mob, and he'd been caught. They called in Dr. Saunders. Well, Dr. Saunders was a surgeon who could do amazing things with a darning needle. Josh would need a urine bag for the rest of his life. The customers all knew they had to be very nice to Josh or he would pour urine in their drinks. The prostitutes here are all very talented. Mother insisted that all of the girls had to develop other skills. Some are contortionists, some are good with numbers, but Emma decided she wanted to be a singer. Some people think she's not very good. In fact, some customers have complained, but I like her. When my father slaughtered pigs, their death squeals haunted me. Emma reminds me of that, but in a pleasant way. Then there are the regulars. Over in the corner is Mr. Urquhart. He has a private table because of his peculiar habits. After 5 or 6 martinis, he starts feeling faint and needs to go into the washroom. He uses the urinals like smelling salts. They help revive him. Sometimes the other patrons will help him out, too. I've learned a lot since arriving here. There are a lot of lonely men. That's why I think they have sex with prostitutes, just for a little human contact. I started charging $1 a minute for women who sit and hold men's hands. It seems very popular. There's Mr. Barbaras. He's been in a wheelchair since he was 5. He told me he broke his back in a tricycle accident. Like the men, there are a lot of lonely women who frequent the club, too. Mr. Barbaras has had sexual intercourse with practically every one of them. It's amazing to see him in action. He uses his words like a scalpel. He operates on their misery, and his sex is like some kind of a painkiller. Half the men in the club are frustrated masturbators because they only want to have sex with beautiful women. Not Mr. Barbaras. He finds every woman beautiful. There's only one woman he's never slept with. No one has. At least no one in the club. She comes in the evening at 9 o'clock. Josh serves her tonic water on ice. No one knows who she is. For a while they thought she was a high-class hooker. Now they think she's just a bad poet who comes in here for inspiration. One of the regulars has sex with the dog of one of the women. She charges him $40. It seems as if the dog waits for their encounter as eagerly as he does. Everyone in the club seems to think of this as perverted, and yet in the country, I am used to this. Every night I dream of the farm, the house, the trees. It's horrifying. I wake up in a cold sweat. I stayed away from my mother's office for a long time. I'm afraid of ghosts. But one night I couldn't get back to sleep, and I decided to see what was in there. My brother was a big fan of McDonald's hamburgers. They're experts in time management. Every action is measured. 30 seconds to take an order, 10 seconds to put a patty on the grill, 15 seconds for fixing. My brother applied the same principle to the prostitute. 60 seconds for small talk, 20 seconds to put a condom on, 120 seconds to bring a man to orgasm. Faster service for a better price. Then I found a box of my mother's things. So little left from such an extraordinary life. I couldn't find a picture of me. I guess it must have fallen apart from all the time she looked at it. Love is a funny thing. I've been here only 3 weeks, but already I feel at home. I've decided to sell the farm and move into the club permanently. Perhaps I'll visit the country every once in a while. August 9th. Seems as good a day as any.